Joining me now is one of the sponsors of the bill, Senator Kamala Harris, Democrat of California. Let's talk about the legislation first, Senator. I want to start with this sort of framework. I've talked to a lot of activists and folks working on this issue from before Ferguson on, and there is some real frustration, I think, among people that different attempts at reforms, body cameras, which were a very big point of reform, police training, all kinds of discipline actions for police, that they failed to sort of do the thing that we want to happen. What is your case for why this package wouldn't fail, would actually have real teeth in changing things?
Well, it builds upon everything that has happened in the past, Chris. But what it does most specifically is it is completely and totally directed at one issue, which is accountability and consequence when there is a violation of law, when the rules are broken. So in addition to what you mentioned, our bill, Justice in Policing, which is sponsored by the Congressional Black Caucus, of which I am a member, Senator Cory Booker and myself, and so many of our colleagues are endorsing as co-sponsors. What it will do are things like change the national standard for use of force. So currently in so many jurisdictions, Chris, when there's an excessive use of force, the question in a courtroom when reviewing that is to ask, well, was that use of force reasonable? Well, you can find reason for just about anything. It's not a fair standard, and it's almost insurmountable when we're talking about prosecution of excessive force. So we're suggesting that it be changed to ask the question instead, not was that reasonable, but was it necessary? We're talking about doing pattern and practice investigations. When I was Attorney General of California, I initiated pattern and practice investigations of law enforcement agencies that were accused of discrimination. So we want to strengthen that, put teeth in it, so that, for example, the United States Department of Justice's Civil Rights Division will continue to do the work that was started under a previous administration but stopped under Donald Trump for most intent and purposes, but also that those folks in the Civil Rights Division will have subpoena power to be able to go after those police departments that have a pattern and practice of discrimination. In addition, we are proposing that there need to be independent investigations. I will tell you, as a former prosecutor, no matter how well-intentioned a DA or a state's attorney, the reality is that there is, at the very least, a lack of appearance of absence of conflict when that prosecutor is investigating a police officer from an agency they work with every day. We need to have independent investigations. And then another piece is transparency in terms of data. Again, when I was Attorney General, we opened up the California Department of Justice's data, which otherwise journalists had to claw out of us. We opened it up, and I said, look, we want to make sure that the public has information about deaths in custody, arrest rates based on race and demographic information. So these are the kinds of things that are in this package, and including our anti-lynching bill. And if, to your point about how far have we come, the fact that we can't last week get through an anti-lynching bill at this, year of our Lord 2020 is ridiculous. So the obstacles are there to passing the legislation, but it's good work. It's not enough. It does not address what we need to address in terms of really dealing with what will truly create safety and healthy communities in America. It's a very specific focus, which is accountability and consequence in policing.
When you hear, I'm sure you saw the mayor in Washington, D.C. obviously painted Black Lives Matter on 16th Street. Other protesters came and painted the phrase defund the police. That phrase has gotten a lot of traction. The president clearly views it as politically advantageous. He's been tweeting about it. Joe Biden today coming out and saying, I do not support it. What does that phrase mean to you? What is your reaction to it as a policy prescription?
So, Chris, we have to reimagine safety and public safety in America. The status quo has been to determine and create policy around the idea that more police equals more safety. And that's just wrong. You know what creates greater safety? Funding our public schools so that currently 2/3 of our public school teachers don't have to come out of their own back pocket to pay for school supplies. What creates safety? Investing in the economic opportunities of communities, creating jobs. What creates safe and healthy communities? Making sure that all people have access to health care, mental health care, and that it is within their reach, meaning it is affordable. These are the things that create safe communities. And when in America today, Many cities, as the total city, have of their budget, 1/3 goes to policing. We all have to step back and ask, is that the smartest and best way to actually achieve safety? Through healthy communities, we have safe communities. And I also have to point something else out, Chris. When you go to middle and upper middle class suburban communities, you don't see the patrol car sitting out on the corner and patrolling the streets like you do in other neighborhoods. You don't see the kind of police presence. But you know what you do see? You see well-funded schools. What you do see is families who have the ability to get through the end of the month and not worry about how they're going to put food on the table. What you do see are access to capital and access to public health and to health care. So we do need to reimagine how we as a society are going to, in a smart way, achieve public safety. We don't want police officers to be dealing with the homeless issue. We don't want police officers to be dealing with substance abuse and mental health. No, we should be putting those resources into our public health systems. We should be looking at our budgets and asking, are we getting the best return on investment as taxpayers, much less what is morally right and what is right in terms of actually having safe communities that thrive. And also, I'll mention, and part of what we have to do here is also look at the militarization of police departments and the kind of money that is going to that. And we need to demilitarize police departments. So there's a lot in this conversation, but at its core, one of the issues that I think we should all agree on is that it is old thinking, it is outdated, and it is actually wrong and backward to think that more police officers will create more safety.